Hello and welcome to episode 4 of the Icons of Fright podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Rob Galuzzo. Joining me is Mike Cuccinata. Hello.
Hey, welcome back, everybody.
Also, Jason Alvino. Hello.
Hi.
And last but certainly not least is Mr. Adam Barnick. Hello.
Good morning. Core 4, episode 4.
Core 4, episode 4. And we are here because we have a book, Icons of Fright, 100 Interviews with Legendary Horror Filmmakers. It is out now. And the purpose of this podcast is to, for us to catch up, but really to contextualize a lot of the stuff that you're going to see in the book. We are proud of it as it is, but so many stories behind the scenes and crazy things that were going on, a lot of which we didn't really know what we were doing. We were going along for the ride, and it was kind of amazing what came out of all the Icons of Fright stuff. So when we last spoke, we had left off at the tail end of 2007. So we're now a couple of years into our run. And I mentioned Jeffrey Combs briefly, mainly because I laughed that he took another call from his dentist while we were chatting, and I left it in the interview. Just I think that's funny. But there was something interesting about the Jeffrey Combs interview that I wanted to bring up again. Up until this point in time, getting Icons interviews were, we were either talking to people at conventions. MySpace was a method. We were just starting to get involved with press junkets and get invited to do this stuff. But I didn't remember until rereading it that we spoke to Jeffrey Combs and Serena Vincent because they were both promoting Return to House on Haunted Hill. Okay. And that's it. That was the interesting thing is now we were in competition with all the other websites because they would get these stars like Jeffrey Combs and allot 15, 20 minutes to us, to Bloody Disgusting, to Dread Central, to all these websites. And, zero disrespect to the other sites because their bread and butter was getting scoops and really promoting that latest product. But what I was reminded of is that anytime Mike and I got these opportunities, we took advantage to apply the Icons template to it, meaning, of course, I asked Jeffrey a question about Return to House on Haunted Hill, but then I got really into, at the time, they wanted to do a Reanimator sequel, House of Reanimator, that was super political.
Oh, right.
Because this was the Bush and Cheney years. And so, I was able to kind of squeeze that conversation in, and it was interesting to reread it because obviously now Stewart's gone, and they never got to do another Reanimator, but him and Jeffrey had a complete disagreement about how to continue that franchise. And so even though you might not remember Return to House on Haunted Hill, it was because of movies like that gave us the opportunity to talk to someone like Jeffrey Combs, which I thought was amazing. And I hope this happens to a lot of people that are reading the book. Do you remember they only did this with Return to House on Haunted Hill? You and I, Mike, had DVDs, but the HD DVD and the Blu-ray had branching objects, like branching scenes. So it was the first movie where they shot 96 permeations of the movie, and it was like a choose your adventure movie.
Wow.
I never got to experience that version of it, so I went on Amazon last night and I found a triple feature of it with Ghost Ship and House of Wax, the remake, for $11, and I skimmed the reviews, and somebody said, yes, this has the branching version of Return House on Haunted Hill.
Oh, nice.
So it might not be a good movie. I can't remember, to be honest. I've only seen it once. But I immediately went and bought the branching version on Blu-ray last night after reading our interview, which I thought was funny. And also, this was the time that Jeffrey had just done the Masters of Horror episode, The Black Cat, with Stuart Gordon. So he's talking about playing Poe before the Nevermore show, which did all of us get to see that together?
Oh, we did not see that.
I saw it.
You didn't get to. Jay, you saw it?
Yeah.
Jay lived out here. Yeah. So for, I don't know, 6 months, basically, Stuart Gordon directed a one-man play of Jeffrey Combs as Poe.
And it ran for months, if you recall. It could never end. And it was what was so much fun about seeing it is, first of all, Combs is fantastic. He's on stage for 9 minutes. But right in the back, you've got Stuart Gordon. he's doing the lights. He's like he's running the board the entire time.
Yeah,
it was fantastic. What a great experience that was.
Yeah, and I mean every time I went, there was a different, because it was here in California. You would see Joe Dante at one show, or Don Coscarelli.
Yeah, that was
Angus
cool.
Angus
coming out for that.
Everyone was coming out to check it out. And by the way, since we're on that topic, it that really made me appreciate acting as an art form. I mean, I've always loved actors and all that, but I know how complicated it is to memorize a couple of lines. So for us to see Jeffrey Combs for 90 minutes straight, not only reciting dialogue in character as Edgar Allan Poe, he was reciting those, the Telltale Heart and all these stories from memory.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just, it was always a little different every night, but it felt like time travel. It felt like we were in a room with a candlelit Edgar Allan Poe telling us his stories, getting drunk, making fun of the other critics. It was
that's
incredible.
That's Stewart's entire. I mean, that's Stewart going back to his roots. He must have been having a blast, like when he was doing the theater in Chicago, and he probably was running the lights then too.
Yeah.
So cool.
No, Stewart was a great guy. I genuinely miss him, because he was he's just had a mischievous way to him. Not quite like the other, the other Masters of Horror guys, but Jeffrey Combs, great interview. And really quickly on Serena Vincent, what was fun about that, revisiting that interview, is, well, at the time I bring up that it's the 5-year anniversary of Cabin Fever, and she's like, "Oh my God, it's been so long and we're so old." Now it's what, 20 so Cabin Fever. It's kind of amazing. But I'd forgot, and I don't know if anyone's ever seen these, maybe Adam, but because Serena and Jordan Ladd had done Cabin Fever with Eli Roth, I forgot that Eli sought out David Lynch, and David Lynch was a mentor to him. And Serena talks about how, David Lynch would call up and they'd come over and just shoot scenes with him.
Yeah, I think David actually it's at the reverse. I think David was looking for a research assistant, and maybe it did it through NYU and discovered Eli.
Right.
And then they built that partnership together. But David was really excited about internet content before it was called content in the early 2000s. And they would just be doing like experimental short films on the weekend.
Yeah. But
Jordan and Serena are in at least 2 of them.
Those, I know the shorts are kind of out, they're on Criterion Channel and all that, but are the ones with them out there, like, available?
I saw them
somewhere.
Did I see them? Yeah. I mean, they're either on some like the Inland Empire disc or something like that, or maybe I did see it on YouTube. I'm sure like someone rips it, throws it on YouTube, and then maybe it comes down. I have seen them, and I couldn't tell you where, but they're all, Lynchian, lo-fi, analog feeling, strange shorts with these, awesome actors, or like the Rabbits one. Is it like Naomi Watts, like in the bunny costume, and you can't tell it's her?
Oh my God.
Love it.
I was laughing because she Serena Vincent says in our interview how, I'd get pages the night before of a scene. I had no idea what it meant. I'd go in the next day, we'd shoot it, and I'd prepare it, and then he'd be like, "Great, now do the entire thing in monotone." So like, it made me laugh just reading, like, I guess that's what it was like to work with David Lynch. So that's fun stuff. And also I really wanted to bring up this interview because it ties into a lot of what Adam Barnick ended up doing a lot of in this period, which is a lot of the bonus feature stuff. Was I reread our Joe Lynch interview, and Joe Lynch was a fellow Long Islander. He was from New York like us. He got his start in Troma Films and worked on I want to say it was Terra Firma, or maybe it was Tromeo and Juliet.
Firma.
And at the time, I mean, now he's done several films, but at the time, here's this ambitious kid who got the opportunity to do a sequel, which most people would have, turned their noses up at. But he saw Wrong Turn 2 as a huge opportunity. And it was interesting to go back and reread his interview in that moment in time, talking about how seriously he took it, how he got there, how hard he worked, how basically his advice, which is great for all filmmakers, is no matter what role you have, whether it's a PA or whatever, you give it your all, because people notice when you care and you're there. But last time we mentioned how we interviewed Coralina from Demons 2 and Mother of Tears, and that we became friends with her. I was reminded that when Wrong Turn 2 came out on DVD, this is a direct-to-DVD title, but we did get to see it at the Two Boots as a Fangoria screening.
Correct.
That Coralina and her mom came with us too. So I remember all of us going to see that at the Two Boots together. And Adam, I don't know if you just decided at the last minute, but obviously Joe couldn't come. He made a little video with his then wife that played before, but Joe's family was at this screening, and Adam filmed all their reactions coming out of the theater, which we still, I don't know if that's on YouTube. We should put it on YouTube if it's not, but it was a really sweet way to basically, it was a gift we gave to Joe, being like, here's how your family thought about your movie.
Yeah.
What do you remember about that, Adam?
Well, I remember like his father's 2-second soundbite, which was so perfect, and I hope Joe treasured it. Was just, Joe, you fucked up. That was it.
Yeah.
That was his review.
Yeah.
And I remember, I believe his brother talking a lot about it. But well, I mean, we were all at that too.
His brother was like, it's almost as good as Maniac Cop 3, but something like which is
That's
pretty
the Lynch
amazing.
House. Yeah.
But yeah, that brought back really good memories. And Adam, was this recontextualize it for us, because you had gone to the shoot for the short film of Grace that Jay was doing effects on, and you documented the whole thing. Like, I still have discs of you documenting, and eventually that led to you doing that for bonus features, including Adam Green's Frozen much later on. Was that the start of that?
It was. I mean, Paul and I hit it off even before Blood Drive was released, because we found out maybe 6 months before it's going to come out, like, here's the winners, so we were all starting to talk. And that summer there was a festival called Vision Fest in New York that Paul had a screenplay up for a potential award in, called Heartland. And so he was coming to New York. So I was like, all right, we should meet. And so that was sort of the beginning of us first, getting to chat in person. And I don't remember exactly when I started hearing about Grace. It must have been probably right after Blood Drive came out. We all did the HorrorCon and we all connected, like we talked about last episode. But I know I think he just randomly, he wanted me to do something for the short. And I think he just said, like, oh, maybe a behind the scenes documentary. And I was like, oh, that sounds cool. I didn't really have that background. I had kind of done a behind the scenes doc once in film school for these two artists who had a studio in Union Square, and they were like, just come and film and make a thing. But that was it. Like, I didn't really have that background, but I think one thing that did really help me, other than a filmmaking background, was these interviews I was doing and wanting to do very in-depth brain pickings and learn more about the process for me, but also other people could watch it and study these things. So Paul asked me to do that. So yeah, I'm shooting while you guys you're working on it. Rob, you're out there, I guess, kind of documenting it too. And I'm trying to think about, I know I did two. They are my first behind the scenes docs for films. And I know I did one that was basically like a 3-minute EPK razzle dazzle. And then like a 30-minute one that really showed, something more thorough from like beginning to end. And
well, what was cool about it, because didn't you do like a super long? I have a super long version. Yeah,
there's like a 3-minute. There's like a 3-minute one, which kind of feels, it's almost like a standard studio thing where it's just kind of like and it's over. Yeah, and then the 30-minute one got into a much more in depth area, and I think that, like, all the way to post. I remember going to Boston to film them recording. It wasn't an orchestra, but he had several musicians doing the song at the end.
Yeah.
So I guess that is the first.
It was like a slowed down version of Amazing Grace or something like that.
Yes,
my memory.
Yeah. So that's my first avenue in that, and I wasn't really thinking hardcore, like, this is an area I need to pursue in filmmaking. But I absolutely loved the process, and it was feeding into the stuff that I was starting to get really into, which is like in-depth interviews and filmmaking on the fly.
Yeah.
So Paul always had the idea, like, if we go make the feature, you can come back again. And we weren't sure that was going to work out. Because
it did.
It did. Oh my, yeah. I mean,
and hey, what happened on that feature film set?
Well, there was a lot of shenanigans. There was oh, you mean like what it was an end result, or
isn't it not where you met your wife?
Yes, I was getting to that. I hadn't forgotten. That's true. Yes.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that.
Yeah. Wait, who? Yeah.
Well,
Yes,
look, I bring this all up because I think it was just a natural progression, and it worked for all of us. Where Icons was something we did out of genuine passion. We were interviewing people, but you were interviewing filmmakers for your own website, for E-Insiders, and for Icons of Fright to learn more about filmmaking. And so I think both of us gravitated towards documentaries because it almost felt like the next step. Like, okay, now let's take those interviews, but do them on camera and educate people.
Yeah, and make a movie about movies, not just a razzle studio. You know what I mean? Like traditional EPK. It's like I wanted this to be a real documentary about filmmaking. And you're this close to people and you're hearing the process. You're seeing how this person talks to actors. You're watching problem solving. It's not just a fast montage showing people be busy.
Yeah.
So that was always my goal with those. And I mean, I did plenty of film doc work after that, but the only two where I sort of was start to finish doing every step of the process would have been Grace and Frozen. And we'll get to talking about Larry, and I ended up doing a lot of cool stuff for him, but it wasn't necessarily being on the set capturing everything from the start. But there's something to say about having so many hands in those steps of the process, and really knowing, like, not being surprised by the footage you're getting and having a plan.
Yeah.
Well, I think also this was, I think it was kind of like end of 2007, definitely going into 2008, where, like Rob said, we started doing this because we were fans and we were curious and we wanted to talk to these people. And, like we were all doing very different things when we started. And then as things progressed, there was kind of this transition from, we're fans. We're always going to be fans, right? But like coming from a place where it's like we're fans, kind of transitioning over to like, oh, wait a minute, this could be like something we could do, where this could be like a professional thing that we can do. Different areas of this industry we actually can fit in. I also think it's really funny that, like Rob mentioned, like we had no idea what we were doing when we started. We still didn't know what we were doing. We kind of like just did it. Like literally just did it. Oh, hey, you want to edit a behind the scenes doc? Sure. Like no idea how. Hey, you want to do makeup effects? Sure. I haven't done them in 15 years, but what the hell? Let's try it.
I mean, if you think about it on paper, our friend Paul Solid, however I say Solid, Paul is making a short film on Grace, and somehow, like, we all just were like, yeah, we'll go. Like, why were we all?
Somehow we were all hired.
Just weren't thinking about it. We were just like, let's go to California while he shoots his thing, and then it's the middle of the night, and we're talking to Bob Clark in an effects room with you.
No.
It was crazy. We didn't know what we were doing. I still don't know what I'm doing. To be honest, but
it's funny how the point I was making was it was never an end goal. It was just in the moment. It just happened. Like we never started, I think, anything, Icons or anything, where we had this like end goal in mind. Like, I'm going to do this, but what's going to happen is at the end of it, I'm going to be this. No idea, no, grand plan. We just went with it.
Your ambition.
No, none at all.
I mean, I had more of a plan to get, but never pursue filmmaking, but didn't necessarily expect with those avenues and channels. I know what
exactly. You mean. Like it never, in the back of your mind, you're like, oh yeah, I want to make a movie one day. It's like, but you don't know all the steps, how it gets there. There's all these twists and turns, and you know, I I'm I think it's fair to say like 90% of everything that happened in our lives, as far as our careers and whatnot, just happened because we were just there and we just said, "What the hell? We'll try it. We'll do it." And it's like
putting
the rest
yourself
is
out there.
history.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know,
Well,
like there wasn't a big plan.
Well, Mike, because I think what was interesting about this period in time is that we all started to find things we were good at and shined at and explore that. And around this time, Mike, you were, we'd be in California visiting Speaking and you would watch Hellgate. And I'd be in the other room, and 10 minutes later, you came up with a video about Hellgate or Prom Night.
Right.
Like, you were making these really
reaction videos before there were reaction videos.
Videos,
right,
with your very unique perspective. But what came out of that was, I think, the beginning of the fact that you were an exceptional editor, which came into play much later on. I mean, your prom night video is literally you in a prom suit spinning Jamie Lee around, and then it cuts to Jamie Lee.
That's right.
Like editing tricks that I was like, this is so funny, and Mike is so good at it.
I think that was before. That's before I went back to film school too. So because that's where Icons led. You went out to LA. You were working on Psycho Legacy.
Yeah.
After that, I was like, this is like 2009-ish is when I think what Icons did was we all sort of like looked around and go, we can't keep doing what we're doing, especially after you finished Psycho Legacy. And I was at the mall, just banging around there. And I was like, all right, I'm just going to go back to school, just to go, just finish it up, which led me back to Brooklyn College, film school. And the work that I continued to do, and where it led. I mean, it was sort of a more traditional thing. It didn't really connect to my post Icons, where it didn't connect too much with Icons until I worked on the first year of Shudder. So,
yeah. I mean, most people don't know that the year that Shudder launched at the very, very beginning, Mike cut a lot of those promos.
I
specifically remember a Frankenhooker one. That had your style to it.
Right. The only thing I was hired to do was it was part-time. It was 2 days a week. I was already working at this small production company in the city doing like corporate videos and like directing the occasional like vanity music video. And I saw the job listing for something related to horror. And I said, all right. And it was 2 days a week. I was hired to take the library that they had at the time, all the titles that they were going to launch with, and just pull like 2-minute clips for YouTube, just clips of the movies. And within a week, I was just like, I'm not just going to pull clips from the movies. Why don't I make you trailers for all these different collections you have? And it just snowballed from there. And then I worked with them for the first 9 months. I got through the launch, and then the company that was contracted to Shudder ended up getting bought out by Warner Brothers. And I did have the opportunity to stay with Shudder, but I also was they were still talking to me about working on Warner Archive. And I wanted to pivot a little bit because that would give me the chance to work with Warner's big film library and with classic films, which I also have a strong interest in, and to also work with the archivist and historian George at Warner Archive, who is a font of knowledge. And I couldn't pass that opportunity up, so I pivoted to Warner Archive for a little, which and everyone knows how Warner Brothers is these days. They have a very short attention span for things. So Warner Archive was a very short-lived streaming service, but I mean, I wouldn't have been there, wouldn't have ended up working for Warner Brothers if I hadn't worked on Icons. I really have no other background or connection to the business besides that. It's really been incredible.
If you weren't spinning around with Jamie Lee Curtis in your prom night video,
yes,
you would not have been there.
If at 2 a.m, I hadn't shot a video in Spooky Dan's living room, I would have never worked for Warner Brothers and had access to the entire MGM library before 1986. What a dream.
Incredible. Well, actually, Mike, I have a few things I wanted to remind you about. There was one interview that I wanted to flag and bring to people's attention, which was your chat with Tom Woodruff Jr. From ABI,
yeah.
Because, we had spoken to people like Greg Nicoteri. We'd spoken to effects artists, but I think it was our mutual friend, Ian, who worked on our site on and off,
right,
who had just reached out to Tom and set that up for you, because it didn't seem like, I think the Monster Squad DVD had just come out, because you do reference that in there. But there's several things I love about that interview. One is how candid he is about having no connections to the industry and getting it, like writing letters to people like John Chambers and all that. And then just coming to visit LA and meeting some of the effects guys, getting to meet Stan Winston. What struck me though is, the first time he came out here to try to be in the industry was right on the verge of a strike. And so rereading this now, because we've lived through at least two of them now, but rereading that. So this is the first time he came to Hollywood, and John Chambers said to him, I know people that have been in the industry for 20 years that are losing their house. This is an interview from 15 years ago, right? And now it's like we keep repeating that, which just goes to show how we really need to rethink strikes in this industry, because the consequences are insane. But his first movie ever was Metal Storm, which I thought was kind of fun. And from Metal Storm, he went right to Terminator. And I remember you being shocked, like, wait, you worked on Terminator? He's like, yeah, I puppeted it. Like, anytime you see him walking, and that's me puppeting him. And then all this leading to him being, they worked on Aliens, but then he became the alien for Alien 3. And some of the stuff that came up in your interview, him saying as difficult as Alien 3 was, Sigourney would visit them, the effects guys, to look at the art. And he's like, kind of revitalized us, because it was like, she's looking at our work as art. And that's like, it is. Technically, it's art. But it's a great interview that's very candid about the process. But there were two things that stood out that I really loved. And it's what kind of set Icon's interviews apart was, number one, he talks about conventions and how he wanted to make everyone feel welcome, which I feel like is kind of lacking these days. He's like, look, I don't care if a kid comes up to me and it's a question that I've already heard 100 times. For that kid, I'm going to pretend like I'm hearing that question for the first time. Because I remember being on the other side of that table and not being able to have access to this information. And that was the other thing. You thank him for the interview at the end. And he says, well, I remember how hard it was to find this information. So that's why I do this, to pay it forward. And I hope some kid read your Tom Woodruff Jr. interview back then and was inspired in some fashion, or that people will rediscover it now. So that's all I had to say about that. I don't know if you remember or want to chime in a little bit more, but
that's one I barely remember. You reminding me of it is reminding me of it. So I have little to add on that one. Sorry.
It's all right.
He's very gracious. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, I feel like people, I think because of our sincere approach, people were a little bit more open to give us those kind of interviews at all times. Again, while simultaneously they're doing kind of the soundbite versions for all the other horror sites at the time.
Did I accidentally become the monster suit guy for Icons of Fright? Because we talked to Ben Chapman, Tom Woodruff, Dick Durock, I guess Gunnar Hansen to an extent. Were there any of the monster guys?
Yeah, you became the monster guy. Well, we're going to get to Dick and Gunnar in a minute, but resuming on 2008 now, we're in 2008, and this is kind of fun. This is sort of the dumb luck of Icons of Fright. This is when you and I, Mike, discovered The Signal. So on Long Island, I can't remember which theater it was. Maybe it was Westbury or the Farmingdale AMC, but Roosevelt Field. We had got
Roosevelt Field. It was We did not get wind. I will tell you what happened. We did not get wind. What happened was I worked at the mall, and they would have Roosevelt Field movie theater was used for test screenings. It was a test screening place. So there were people who would walk around the mall and hand out these flyers. Do you want to see a movie? And we did. Now we got to do this twice. Either before The Signal or just after. We did. I want to say one of the Blair Witch guys, their Alien movie. We saw that.
Right. Yeah.
And it was notoriously a terrible screening because the sound was awful. The picture was disgusting. People didn't like it. I've seen him talk about that screening. And the other one they're handing out turned out to be The Signal. So I would always call you and say, look, I got these passes. Let's go. And so we sit down to start this movie, and it was fantastic. It wasn't like anything we'd ever seen before. So The Signal is if you haven't seen it, and it's a good chance you haven't, because there's also another movie that came out a few years ago called The Signal, which it's also a sci-fi kind of thing. There's a city called Terminus, and something is going on the TV that's making everybody get into a rage or start to lose their mind. There's not really zombifying, but they're not normal anymore. They see this image flash on the screen, and they just want to kill people. It's kind of like a blend of like the 28 Days Later kind of rage virus, and a little bit of that sort of like mind soup, like from Pontypool, if you've seen that. And the movie is done by three different directors. Rob, just refresh me on the names quick. You got that.
Dan Bush, Jacob Gentry, and Dave Bruckner.
And Dave Bruckner, right? And
we'll get to him.
The segment, right?
Yeah.
And each of them directed a segment. And every segment is wildly different from the next. So it's one movie. It's in many ways one story, but it's an anthology. And it just sort of blew our minds. We hadn't seen anything like that. It was
we didn't know anything about it. We had not seen a trailer.
Nothing about it.
We went in blind.
No trailer. Yeah.
And we didn't even know the three directors things. It was just that the three acts shifted the perspective of, so you see the crazy virus, but now in segment 2, you're in the eyes of a person who is already crazy that doesn't realize they're crazy, which is the
second segment's like more of a slapstick comedy. It's a very black comedy. The first one's very traditionally scary, intense, dark. The second act is funny and irreverent and satirical, and the third act's very experimental.
Yeah. And so I want to say, and I'm just like guessing that we saw this on like a Tuesday night, like a Monday or Tuesday night, and we were so blown away by the movie, and we're like, who the hell are these people that made it? So that night you went on MySpace and you literally found everybody's MySpace profile. Everybody that was in the movie, everybody that directed it. And I'll never forget, because we have pictures of it and it's on the website, but basically this must have been a Monday or Tuesday. We reached out to everybody on MySpace by Tuesday, Wednesday night, and by sheer fate, they were in New York City that weekend. So I remember by Saturday morning, you and I were sitting at the French Roast on 6th and 11th with the two lead stars, Anessa Ramsey and Justin Wellborn.
Yeah.
And I have photos of us sitting with them having lunch or dinner, whatever it was, lunch, breakfast.
Like a brunch.
And it was so surreal to me that it's like, we didn't even know these people existed the last Sunday. But we saw their movie, we found them, and now we're having a meal with them. And I remember that was, again, much like Hatchet and Behind the Mask and films like that, we really wanted to tell everybody about this movie. And
that was your huge discovery. Yeah.
It was. And it started several relationships. Well, number one, I contacted Tony Timpone at Fangoria, and I'm like, Tony, The Signal, you have to understand, you have to see this movie. And because of that, he had AJ and Dave Bruckner at the next weekend of horrors. There was one within the next couple of months. So AJ had told me, you're the reason we got invited to Weekend of Horrors, for sure. Now, Dave Bruckner has gone on to direct the Hellraiser remake on Hulu. Yeah. Very sought after director now. It's kind of amazing that we were there for film 1. And then what else stemmed from that? Well, obviously, then we became really good friends with everybody involved. Specifically, I became really good buddies with AJ. But you were the one, Mike, who interviewed AJ. And I loved revisiting the interview because it basically, you guys nerd out right away. You're talking about
over
slime Bolorama. Yes.
Friday the 13th 6, because he went to summer camp at the where they shot it. Yeah.
Yeah, and my favorite quote, which I found last night, was you ask him about Creepshow 3, which he's very candid about. They're like, I need to ask you about Creepshow 3 so that I can write it off on my taxes.
Never say that. We would never say it to anybody these days. They would take such offense. No, H was great. H was candid, and he stayed in touch with us, and it was great. It's been great to see all those people grow. You know, it's funny doing that. What we did then, like going to a test screening and then deciding that we were now we were going to interview everybody and we were going to review it. You would get into so much trouble to doing that now. That is something you're just not allowed to do. But you were never allowed to do it, and we didn't know that. I mean, it says they right on the paper when they hand it out. You know, not a journalist, but we didn't consider ourselves journalists or film critics or anything. We were just a bunch of nerdy fans who had a website. So to go to these, like, you know, these special screenings where they're really just trying to tweak the movie, and the signal didn't release. I think it took another like, 12 to like 15 months before it came out, and it was in many ways very dramatically different from the version that we saw.
The biggest difference, there was only one difference. The music cut was the same. The main song that Vanessa's character listened to was Lou Reed's
Perfect Day.
Perfect Day. And it was perfect. I mean, it was the sort of thing like, you know, Don't You Forget About Me in the Breakfast Club. It is the song of the movie. And Lou Reed apparently hates horror movies and would not sign off on it. So for a year, they're trying to find another song to replace it. And unfortunately, I can't even remember what they replaced it with. There is another song in the movie. It is, it's still a great film. I still love it. It has never played as well as when we saw it with Perfect Day. Like, that was such a magical way to see that movie.
Right.
And by the way, it also opened because we were such advocates of it. It opened our relationship with Magnolia, because Magnolia ended up becoming,
until we closed that relationship.
Oh, that's coming up momentarily in this discussion. Stay tuned. But yeah. So anyway, that was the beginning of a beautiful relationship. And he tells you in the interview that he's about to do a film with Ty West, which ended up becoming The House of the Devil. So I love that. Mike, there's two interviews in here that I wanted to just touch on briefly because neither icon is with us anymore. One was Dick Durock. He talked to you because I think Swamp Thing, the series, was coming out.
Yeah.
I was not a fan of the series. I'd never seen it, but you were, and so you got to speak to him about it. Right. But I love, even though I didn't see it, what I love is that you immediately bring up a kinder trauma moment, which is like, what happened to the lead kid of the show?
The lead kids, they put him in the back of a truck and they drive him off, and you never see him again. I think that's it ends. I think the series ends. I have to go back and watch it, but that was like, they would run these things. It was like a USA Network show, very low budget. There was a kid who was a lead, who's about like 10, 12 years old. And at some point, I guess they decided they just don't want this character in anymore. And the last thing you see is he's in a cage in the back of a truck. Now, completely wrecked. And then you never see this kid again. They never seem to pick it up. I think maybe they picked it up very late at the end of the series. But he tells you that, can you imagine how traumatizing that is for a kid to be the lead of a show, and then he gets taken away to cage, never to be seen again for season 2? I think he says to you, there's a throwaway line where they say he's all right. Okay.
But would you have picked that up as a kid? Like,
Billy went to the nice trafficking farm.
But I love that moment. I think that made me laugh a lot. And really, I think going back, your interview with Gunnar Hansen is horrific, because yes, of course you touch on Chainsaw, but at this point he'd be asked about Texas Chainsaw Massacre a million times. The main reason we spoke to him is because we were friendly with Steven Mena, who had done Malevolence, and Steven had just done Brutal Massacre comedy. Gunnar was in it. And so you got whatever it was, an hour with Gunnar.
Well, I just got an hour with Gunnar.
But what I loved about it was he told you a lot about his early life. He talked to you about, he was so reluctant to do movies again after Chainsaw, but then he's like, what am I doing? Like, sure, I'll do this Hollywood Chainsaw Hookers. There's no script, whatever. Like, I'll show up in Hollywood for 7 days and see what happens. I don't think he ever had the opportunity to actually talk about some of the independent films that he had a good time on, and he does with you. And more importantly, I completely had forgot about this, because this movie, probably by the time you are listening to this movie will be available again after all these years. But you really talked to him about Murder Set Pieces, which at this point he had a big part in that with a lot of other people. It's not in the book, but on our website, you can find a pretty extensive interview with Nick Palumbo, who wrote and directed that movie. Now,
this was a very controversial movie.
Yeah, just to contextualize,
which is saying a lot. I mean, which is saying a lot for this time. Yeah,
I don't know.
Be a very controversial movie.
I don't know if these days this movie would have the same, especially with the Terrifier movies and stuff like that. But it was just
I think so. I'm sorry. I think this movie would still because the tone of Murder Set Pieces is nothing like the tone of the Terrifier movies. The Terrifier movies are grand guignol. This is Murder Set Pieces is a dirty, wretchedly dark movie that takes place in the, like, what is it? It's in Las Vegas, right? The grimiest parts of Las Vegas. There's no humor in it. It takes itself very serious. Nick Palumbo took it very seriously, and I don't know if and I've never found it to be a very successful movie. I don't find it to be scary. It was just, people, you can read the interview. But our opinion was what was going on with it was that it was so controversial at the time. He also had issues with Serena Vincent. I don't think she was treated very well on his set. She was there for a day. So there was rumors that she was not treated well. But a lot of people were not covering the movie because of it, because of its content. And I thought well, that's not fair. I don't like the movie. I think it's kind of gross. I think it's kind of unsavory and uncouth. I kind of hated it, but we're not censors. And we sat down with Nick for 2 hours in a hotel room at a convention when nobody else would talk to him about it. And I think I had to be honest with him. I had to be upfront and honest and talk to him about how I really didn't care for the movie. But let's talk about it. Let's talk about what you were trying to do, and see maybe we can find some common ground in that, and not ignore you, not throw you in the trash. It's a very technically well made movie. He shot it on 35. It looks pretty decent. But it's a rough film. Yeah, I do wonder if I would appreciate it more now. I wonder if I would have a different opinion about it now. It's not something I'm keen or excited to revisit. But I guess you'll be hearing a lot about it because it's coming back out. Is it 15 years? It'll be a 15th anniversary.
Probably 15, maybe even
edition.
Maybe even 20 at this point, but probably 15. But no, it's a company called Massacre Video that does a lot of these types of films, and they're putting it out again. And look, I'm bringing it up for two reasons. Number one, I thought your interview with him was exceptional. And, nowadays people would just go on Twitter and cancel this guy, which is not fair. Right. You did not like this movie at all. No. But I thought it was unfair.
I wasn't even sure I liked Nick, to be perfectly honest. 100%. I wasn't even sure I cared for him.
But you sat in a room with him respectfully, you shook his hand, and you gave publicity to his film for the people that might want to check it out. So I respect that part of it. The reason I bring it up with Gunnar, though, is because it sparks a great conversation and debate between the two of you, not about Murder Set Pieces, but basically Gunnar defending horror in general. Because he's like, okay, so because that movie has violence against women or a Nazi character, does that make Nick a Nazi and a womanizer, whatever? He's like, no, I want to separate horror from, he's like, that's us facing those terrible things in life. I was pretty blown away by Gunnar's defense of horror that was triggered by that mere mention. And he, by the way, he tells you about how, like, Johnny Carson came out against Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Like, was very against it. You were like, Johnny Carson, really? So it's interesting. It was, again, Gunnar was a very soft-spoken but smart guy. He was primarily a writer. He did documentary work. You had done that interview with him. I was fortunate to do one of the Monster Paloozas, one of his last, where I got to interview him and the cast and crew on stage. And by the way, he did a book called, I think it's called Chainsaw Confidential, all about his perspective of making the film and its kind of, its legacy, which is excellent. It's really, really excellent.
Rob, wasn't he in that Stephen Menem movie as well?
Yeah, Brutal Massacre.
Bringing
Brutal
it
Massacre.
circle.
Well, Stephen put us in touch.
That's how we got to talk to him.
For a long time, he was going to be Graham Sutter, the which ended up being
right.
Brett Rickaby in Bereavement, which is great. But they had talked about him being Graham Sutter. And I think even Gunnar mentions in the interview that he was kind of tired of being the killer's dad, that version. So to have him be Crenshaw, the kind of cranky, ex-Vietnam
scene-stealing
guy in Brutal Massacre is pretty fun. So kudos to Gunnar Hansen. You should definitely read Mike's interview with him. This one I wanted to bring it up because it was so unique to me. I just reread my Keith Gordon interview. This is the first interview ever that I went out of my way for. And what I mean by that is, again, up until this point, MySpace, slowly Facebook, conventions, etc. I was watching Dexter. I was a huge Dexter fan, and I think they were only up to the second season at this point. And I saw his name pop up as the director. And I'm like, Keith Gordon, like from Christine, he's directing Dexter now. And sure enough, it kind of opened up the floodgates, and I realized, he directed Singing Detective. Like he transitioned to be a director for a lot of interesting indie movies. So that was the first in person that I went on IMDb Pro, found
official channels. Yeah.
I found a manager or an agent. I found an email for somebody that represented him. I emailed them. So it took a while. Emailed them saying, hey, I love Keith Gordon's work. I'd love to chat with him, and before I knew it, they got back to me and put me directly in touch with him via email. And then he got on the phone with me, and it's a great interview because, look, he was 16 years old when he did Jaws 2. I forgot about that. He always aspired to be a director, and he's working with John Carpenter, Brian De Palma, and he said he would hang out on set when he wasn't. He's like, look, they could have been like, kid, you're not in the scene, go home. He's like, they were so welcoming. He's like, of course I had a great education. I didn't go to film school. I sat next to De Palma and Carpenter,
Yeah.
Perfect.
So there's stuff like that in there. And then even delving into both the process of, who was Stephen King when Christine came out? Like he wasn't Stephen King yet. So that was another interesting angle, was him telling me like, we didn't, he had books, but he wasn't the Stephen King we know today. And then transitioning into acting. I mean, I asked him, of course, I'm like, I know this is Icons of Fright, but I love Back to School. It's the one movie that I sat in the theater, and when it ended, we just sat there until it played again, and I watched it twice in a row. And he had great stories about Rodney. He's like, Rodney was not an actor. So what was interesting was that Rodney was used to doing a stand-up set where he would, so like he would talk to me here, and I'm not standing there. He's just doing it because that's how his brain worked for stand-up. And his best friend in that movie was Robert Downey Jr. with like Punk. Then he directed Robert Downey Jr. in the remake of Singing Detective. So he's like, like to work with Robert then as kids, and then to direct him in a completely different context. Like, so incredible career. And I will say that when I first moved to Los Angeles, which was in 2009, I was still a huge Dexter fan, and to his credit, he met me for coffee, and all we did was talk about Dexter because he was at that point directing season 4. So Keith Gordon, man, what a guy!
Yeah, that was a great interview.
Yeah, and then really quickly, this is also the year that we got involved in a lot of. We were being way more active in the convention circuit. And so this was a moment, and because I had already started Psycho Legacy at this point, I was traveling back and forth to Los Angeles. We were meeting different people from that franchise. We met Tom Holland, who wrote Psycho 2, but of course directed Fright Night. And by meeting him, we kind of brought him out of kind of not hiding. He just didn't realize that there was such a fan base for all this stuff. And that led to the Fright Night reunion at Fear Fest 2 in Dallas, Texas. There was only 2 Fear Fests. I remember the guy that ran it. I mean, I had no problem with it. I thought he was a very nice guy. I think his name was John Gray. And he invited us as Icons of Fright to come out to host the Fright Night panel, to be a part of the weekend. Tim Sullivan was coming out for, I think, Driftwood or 2001 Maniacs. Neil Marshall and his wife at the time, Axel, were coming out to promote Doomsday. Neil did our intro for our book, and he mentions that he met us here, and we're like, "Hey, we're going to go visit the grave of Lee Harvey Oswald." He's like, "Why would I know these guys?
Grave.
These guys are so weird."
I drove, which is probably scarier than anything else that ever happened to him. So
yeah. But that was an amazing time. But really, the reason I bring up Fear Fest is because it was the first major, basically every cast member of Fright Night 1 and 2 together on stage for the first time ever. And that, by the way, that panel is now since transitioned into all the bonus features for the Blu-ray, Steelbook, etc.
Oh, it's that one?
Yeah. Yeah, that is on. There is a video of it that's on there. And the full transcript is in our book as well. So right. It's cool. I mean, it was great for, now, of course, FrightNet has had its due.
Well, this is also the time when we got everybody, as many of them together, to do the pirate commentary, which is also available on Blu-rays. Yeah. Well, pirate commentaries were an experiment in like sort of audio production for us, where we tried to get some directors or cast members together for movies that had gotten or had not gotten DVD releases or had gotten DVD releases, but the director wasn't invited to do a commentary, or they were just such like bare bones releases. There were no special features. So in collaboration with, it was Tim Sullivan a lot, right? That was who helped produce those. We got quite a few people together to talk about their own movies and full-length feature commentaries that you could download off of Apple Podcasts. I don't. We should try to find them.
It's not there. They're on my website now. I did find the original files and made them available.
We had Nightwing, the Bat movie. Yeah. We had the Fright Night. Who else do we have? We had Nightwing, Fright Night.
We did 2 for Fright Night. We had started with the Halloween 6 one was kind of our first foray into it. Right. And again, we probably weren't allowed to do this, but thank God we did, because they did end up
absolutely allowed to do this.
Yeah, well, we did it as MP3s.
We weren't using the movie.
We weren't using the movie. You could download the MP3 and watch along with your movie.
Right.
But what it was that Sony had the rights to Fright Night. And at that moment in time, certain titles weren't... look, they put out some massive franchise movie. That's what they would put out on DVD. But they weren't as... Look, this is before the Scream Factory and the Arrow Video of it all. Yeah. Where the major studios were putting out their own catalog titles, and they weren't getting to those because they just didn't think there was a demand for it. And again, to bring it back to Tom Woodruff, Monster Squad was a huge hit on DVD, I think, because the demand had built. So Fright Night was one of those titles that nobody at Sony really wanted to do anything with at home video. And so we took matters into our own hands for that. I believe Tim and Tom also did one for Child's Play, because he was not invited to participate.
He was not invited.
Right. He has bad blood between him and a producer. It's the typical Hollywood story. We were making those available to people, that they could just download the MP3. And the Fright Night ones have, again, now the rise of the specialty label came. And at first it was Twilight Time, with the late great Nick Redman, a dear friend of mine who passed away way too soon, who is an incredible voice, an incredible advocate for he wasn't even a horror guy. He really was putting out classic films and stuff from Sam Peckinpah and Woody Allen with Twilight Time. And because he had a great relationship with Sony, which no other label did, he put out Christine, The Blob, Fright Night. He did a couple of their horror titles. And thankfully everything is kind of opened up. And now even Candyman was a movie that we thought was never going to get a proper release because it was in the Sony archive. So it's kind of incredible how this it all kind of stemmed from us making that noise with Fright Night. And again, at the same time, we all flew out to Los Angeles for the Fangoria Weekend of Horrors in Burbank, where I helped put together the Psycho reunion, which again, Tom, Hilton Green, various people from all of the sequels, that is up in its entirety in this book, as well. But this brings us to the one that maybe Adam should take the lead on it. But we also did the one interview in this book that is completely untouched and unedited in any way, shape, or form is with the great Larry Fessenden. And basically, it's also the one interview that I think every one of us is a part of. I think all of us were there.
Yeah.
Pretty equal, yeah.
We loved Larry. We went to meet him in the city. My memory is that we picked a bar that was way too loud initially. He's like, "Hey man, I know a much better place we can go that'll be chill." And so we went to the bar that he wrote, Habit.
Yeah.
And proceeded to drink nonstop while having a 2-hour interview with him.
Yeah.
Who is it?
That was more like sitting at the campfire. A boozy campfire with the governor.
A boozy campfire with the governor.
It wasn't even like a drunken interview. It's a really great interview.
It is.
It's just a night out with except we're all out with the master, like listening to like all these amazing stories.
Yeah. David Cross was in the corner. I remember Mike noted that.
He was, yeah.
Yeah.
David Cross.
What a weird night in New York City.
Yeah.
But I mean, looking back on it, I do think that is the epitome of what Icons of Fright was all about. Was
totally
a filmmaker who maybe wasn't getting the respect that we felt he deserved. We didn't know.
I don't think he's still getting the respect that he deserves.
Still not. No, definitely not.
No.
But
that was when he, I think Last Winter just came out.
Last Winter was the film. Yeah.
I think he made it, but it hadn't come out yet. But you had seen it because you talked about
it. It didn't come out. It was very close to the disc release, and it was also very close to his Skin and Bones TV episode coming out.
Yes,
so there was a lot. That was that period where it was like, oh wow, Larry's really going to start getting the budgets and exposure he deserves. You know,
right. That hopeful period where you think this is.
Well, I mean, it's. Yeah, I mean, but it's also that's when kind of like the market shifts and it's like you did now it's like you got $5 million for your movie, but then that felt very attainable,
Yeah.
But he's still doing stuff and he's still producing. He's always fine. He's always plucking young filmmakers up and giving them a chance too.
I love what he's doing now, where he's kind of like doing his version of like classic Universal monsters, but like his way. He has his vampire story. He did his Frankenstein, his werewolf story.
That is great. Deranged. Yeah. That one's really, really good.
Yeah. I haven't seen the new one. I haven't seen the werewolf one that he did, or I don't know if it's out yet.
It is. It's out. I watched it on Canopy.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
It's what you mentioned, Deranged. That's the last one I did a major sort of special features package for.
Right. Well, also, didn't you do stuff for the Glass Eye Picks website as kind of like an anniversary thing?
Yeah, I mean, that's funny. We've talked about our parallel paths all coming together, and like I had a bit of a parallel path with Larry. Like I when I moved to New York, I lost my job and my girlfriend like in the same week as October's rolling in, and then I rented Habit, and I'm like, wow, this is like, I feel like this guy right now, and just became obsessed with the film, and I would bump into Larry at screenings and just kind of pick his brain and talk about this and that, or see him just around town here and there. And then the Fango convention where we all kind of come together and where we're promoting the short film I had, I gave him the film, and that kind of started a dialogue. Like he really dug the movie. He's like, yeah, be in touch when it strikes you. And so we're all, and I did a really big interview for, God, what site was it? For the Last Winter, but it wasn't Icons. It might have been one of the last things I did for Entertainment Insiders, but it was on that press tour for Last Winter. And we had a really good experience with that. And it's at this exact time that we're all kind of coming together. We had always talked about doing something for some revivals, special editions of his movies. And then the timing didn't work out for that box set, but we were coming up on the 30th anniversary of Glass Eye Picks a few years after this conversation, which we're going to get into. But that's when I ended up doing a lot of little like retrospective featurettes for all of his films, and ultimately ending. I wasn't on the set for Deranged, but I ended up doing like almost everything on that box set.
Yeah,
was for me. Awesome. Yeah. Well, okay. So the things that stand out to me is there's Mike. One of Mike's my favorite Mike quote is, "You make movies for nervous people."
Yeah.
And he's like, that should be my tagline: movies for nervous people. I love that. I will also boldly say, and we talk about it quite a bit in the interview. Scream Factory had done a box set of his first 4 features, and then they did a separate release for Beneath, the Killer Fish movie. I think Habit is one of the best independent horror movies ever made to this day.
So good.
And it's definitely one of the best New York set.
Oh, without a doubt. Without a doubt.
Yeah.
I think it's timeless. I think it's really, it captures the 90s. It is New York.
It's a beautiful picture of New York 90s. Yeah. Perfectly. Yeah.
But I think that's his, even though I acknowledge that The Last Winter is a technically better movie, and I think there's something about Habit that I think that's my favorite and his best. So if you've never delved into the world of Larry Fessenden, start with Habit. I think
Joe Bob didn't Joe Bob play Habit recently-ish, maybe last year?
I don't know.
I hope so.
I hope so.
Yeah, I think he did.
That's an unusual. That'd be a very unusual selection for that show.
Yeah.
But a good one to expose people to. Habit. Yeah.
I also like that he admits that one of his guilty pleasures was the Godzilla movie that came out around that time, the American one with Matthew Broderick.
Oh,
and we're like, really? He's like, I love it, man. Those little dinosaur, I love it.
He's kind of a dinosaur dork. Like if there's a movie with like T-Rexes running around biting heads off, quality be damned. He's
Well, and the one thing I also learned, because something so pivotal to all his films, and I know that Adam, this is a big thing for you too, is how important sound is for him. And he was telling us, like, when he was younger and you couldn't rent these movies or see them, he's like, I brought a tape recorder and I taped the audio to Jaws, and I thought it was the most illegal thing I could ever do in my life. He's like, but the amount of times I listened to it, so he became obsessed with sound design, because he would record movies in the movie theater.
That's actually, I think, the first thing I asked. There was a theatrical screening of Habit at the Two Boots.
Yeah,
maybe a year or two after I had just rented the tape, and that's what I asked him about during the Q&A. Was like, can you talk about how you got such cool sound on such a scrappy little picture? And he got very into the details on that.
Yeah. And one of the things that this is, the bummer part of reading some of these, again, they're time capsules, but then there's the projects that never came to be. Literally the last thing he says is, because he had just done Last Winter with Ron Perlman, and he's like, man, I want to make a movie about two brothers that play jazz, and it's going to be Ron Perlman and Tom Waits. We were like, those two as brothers in a movie? Like, I want to see that movie. And unfortunately, it's 17 years later, and that movie has not come to be. But can you imagine Ron Perlman and Tom Waits in a Larry Fessenden movie? Like, man, I wish that came to be. But anyway, so yeah, Larry is one of our standout interviews, and it is the epitome of Icons of Fright in this book.
Yeah.
Really quickly, as we start to close out this episode, Mike, I wanted to mention the Mick Garris interview, because what was fun about this whole period was such a whirlwind, because again, I was traveling back and forth between New York and LA. I was working on the Psycho Legacy and making these starting these relationships. And so I had a little bit of a relationship with Mick, and you were in town, and I set up for us to just go to his place and talk.
Let's go to his place. Let's go to Mick's.
And we did, with this, with Mother from Psycho 4 just sitting there, the corpse of Mother. But I think Mick's interview in the book is one of the most fun that you and I have captured in terms of, like, I think the fun oozes off the page, because there's a few things that come up. Number one, he had done the interview show, Fantasy Film Festival.
Right. I think that what's fun about Mick is that Mick starts as an interview guy, becomes a filmmaker.
Us.
He was,
and then we're interviewing him about his filmmaking career, like just doing a little bit of a full circle thing for him. Yeah.
Oh yeah. I mean, I hold Mick as one of my inspirations, because again, he was talking about Fantasy Film Festival and how the one and only episode he didn't air because he was on his honeymoon and couldn't re-record it was William Friedkin, because William Friedkin was so nasty about his feelings with Exorcist 2 that they considered it slander. And I remember you quoted here saying, an icon scoop, William Friedkin doesn't like Exorcist 2. They were like, who would have thought that? But there was that part of it. And also, I mean, him getting his beginning interviewing people, but also he, and this is the thing, if you're sincere about your role, I think that goes a long way. And for him, he was doing, like Adam, behind the scenes for things like Goonies and The Fall.
On-set featurettes. Yes,
On-set
legendary movies.
And I think he told us it was on Goonies that he was doing the behind the scenes, and Steven Spielberg was like, "Hey, so you do a bunch of these, huh?" And he's like, "Well, yeah, but I want to be a writer." And he's like, "Oh, you're a writer. We're doing a show called Amazing Stories, and we need writers." So it wasn't like he pitched himself or what. It just he was in the right place at the right time, and him doing those featurettes led to Amazing Stories, and that's where you discover that he wrote your favorite episode. Mirror Mirror, which Martin Scorsese
Martin Scorsese directed, which stars
episode,
which stars
that was fantastic.
Sam Waterston and as the monster Tim Robbins.
Yes, great episode.
Which is one of Tim Robbins' first roles. That is such a that is a terrifying 30 minutes. I encourage everyone to seek it out. Sam Waters is an author. He's a horror author. And it's been a minute. He starts seeing a phantom from his book in the mirror. Every time he looks in the mirror, the phantom is getting closer and closer to him. Until watch it. Scorsese directs the shit out of it. It's 30 minutes. It's super tight. I mean, it's less than 30 minutes because you're going to watch it without commercials. You're going to find it on iTunes or something like that. It's 21 minutes. So if you want to get scared and have Martin Scorsese scare the shit out of you, go find Mirror Mirror from Amazing Stories. A lot of scary stuff on that show. That show was fantastic and obviously very expensive because what did it last 2 seasons before?
Only 2, but they had
nixed it.
But they had people like Scorsese directing.
Scorsese, they had Friedkin directing stuff.
Yeah,
Friedkin directed the other episode that scared the shit out of me, which was the I think that was that Amazing Stories or was that Twilight Zone 80s? No, that was Twilight Zone 80s. So it was a blessed time. It was a blessed time for anthology television.
Yeah.
Mirror Mirror is the best one.
Mirror Mirror is the best one in terms of scares, but my personal favorite is Mommy Daddy.
Yeah,
Mommy Daddy.
Yeah, we talked about that.
Yeah. I mean, that one's just hilarious and just.
This is also the Head of the Class with Christopher Lloyd, where he's a teacher and they perform his students perform a voodoo ritual on him overnight because he's a mean, nasty teacher. But they don't realize that they accidentally sever his head, and now he's got no head, and it's stitched on, and he's chasing them through the town. The Magnet Boy one wasn't another one that was terrible. Was that?
The guy's magnetized and everything in the town is
magnetized. Great actors. Great.
There was that one with the. It kind of freaked me out. The one where somebody had like a well in their backyard and they would throw things down the well, and then gold would come up. So the implication was that there was something down there trading, and then at the end, the guy goes down. And he comes back up, and they took him, and all this gold falls out of his clothes. Like it was like freaky.
There's the horror version of Weird Science in Amazing Stories with it's an episode with John Cryer, and he's trying to create a model like he's a computer whiz or a science whiz, and he's using magazines to create a woman to fall in love with, and he's like a college student, and he's experimenting with them, and every time he does it, the woman comes up out of the magazines, but something goes horribly wrong. She'll start melting. One's a giant, and they keep repeating. What was it? I remember it's burning into my head here. Oh God, what was it? I forget it. It's unbelievable. It's always in my head all the time. Something like "Kiss Me" and "Kiss Me, I'm Yours Forever." And it is basically a horror version of Weird Science for like 20 minutes.
Wow.
Where is Amazing Stories? Why is Amazing Stories not available anywhere? Can you buy it? Can you?
I have a DVD of it.
It's popped up on Hulu, but it's shocking that is it a music thing? Is it a?
I don't know.
It's weird.
I have
these are like
whole DVD release of it.
You've got all you've got all that Masters of the '80s and a lot of the cast. These huge names in it, and this show is nowhere to be found, and it's 2 fantastic seasons.
Well, I mean, it's kind of crazy. It's similar to Tales from the Crypt. Like you can't stream that anywhere. You could get the DVDs of it. I mean, those 2 shows were just
phenomenal. And that show too. I remember, watching it when it first aired. It was like a CBS show on like a Sunday night or something like that.
NBC. Yeah.
But it felt huge. It felt like you were watching a movie when you were watching it on TV. And we know why, obviously.
It's all, yeah. I mean, the talent behind it.
Right.
You've got
it's probably the biggest budgeted show on TV at that time, I bet.
It was.
Yeah,
which is why it didn't last. It never got the ratings it needed to sustain, like, I think, like probably $1 million episodes in 1986.
At that time,
At that time. And that was sort of a revival of anthology. We see anthology television now pop up. But that was a revival because it was also at the same time NBC was doing a revival of Alfred Hitchcock Presents, which came on after Amazing Stories.
Right.
And CBS had brought the Twilight Zone back for which was also really fantastic. That's the one where Friedkin's involved in that. Wes Craven directed one of those.
Yeah.
Linda Dillon. So yeah, these masters and these icons were working. If you weren't seeing them in the theaters in the 80s, a lot of them were on TV, and I wish those shows were a little more available too. So bring them back.
Yeah, bring them back.
I got a cat howling.
Well, to wrap us up on this episode, let's go back to our friends at Magnolia and a little movie called Let the Right One In.
Let the right one in.
Let the wrong subtitles in.
Yeah. So
we're getting
so to this day, Let the Right One In is one of my all-time favorite films. I think it's a beautiful film, and because of our advocacy for the signal, Magnolia was kind of sending us screeners up front to see things early. They get us on board as early as possible. And so I had gotten an early screener. I still have it. I had an early DVD screener of Let the Right One In, which was the Swedish vampire movie that was going to get a release in America. And I just loved it so much. And I showed it to the whole gang. I had Mike come over and we watched it. And again, it was like, this is an incredible movie.
Fantastic.
And a few things happened in the subsequent months leading up to the release. Number one, I've saved this movie twice now. The first time was there was a screening that I believe Fangoria hosted, a double feature at the Two Boots in New York City.
Two Boots.
And it was Trick or Treat, the very first screening of Trick or Treat with Let the Right One In.
It might have been the only theatrical of Trick or Treat. Yeah.
In New York, for sure.
I was there. Yeah.
And so we went and we did not know what Trick or Treat was going to be. We had a very rough idea. But Michael Dougherty was there with Dylan Baker. They introduced it. I still have photos from that. And Trick or Treat unrolled as the greatest Pulp Fiction of Halloween movie of all time. Like, it blew our minds. We're like, this is going to be the biggest thing ever if they ever put it out. And then I'll never forget, then they showed Let the Right One In. And these are the days of film prints. So you are 5 reels into something. And I'll never forget, because I was the only one in the audience that had already seen this movie. They skipped reel 2 and started reel 3. And I remember thinking, oh no, like this audience is going to be lost because they're missing pivotal information. So I ran to the back and told them, hey, you're playing the wrong reel. And they're like, oh, okay. And again, typical New York audience, I'll never forget it. It stopped and black screen. Everyone's like, what the hell? Hey, what's going on here? And then they resumed the movie at reel 2 appropriately. And then when we get to reel 3, you could hear the annoyance of people like, we already saw this part. What's going on here? And I'm just like, guys, I saved the movie for you. And you're complaining about a scene playing again. So I remember that. I remember saving it for there. But what happened was I'd gotten the DVD. And again, at this point, we didn't have to go to Best Buy every Tuesday to buy the new releases. We were getting them a week or two in advance. They were coming a week or two in advance. And so what happened was, again, we had referenced that I used to host wall nights where I would project a movie onto my wall upstairs. So Mike came over and we had a bunch of our friends like Vin and Wilkie and all these, guys that weren't as into movies as we were, but that we liked to show all the movies to. And I'll never forget, we're watching the DVD of it. And I'm noticing that a lot of the context, the nuance of the dialogue is lost because they're simplifying what a lot of the people are saying. And it started to bother me because I'm like, wait, this isn't the movie. Like, it's a simplistic version of it. And I'll never forget, it's bad. And what really threw me off was maybe 30 minutes into the movie, and I'm sorry to throw you under the bus, Vin, but I think it was Vin that was like, this is dumb. and just having one of our friends say that horrified me. I was like, no, this is one of the most beautiful movies you're ever going to see. And one of my friends thinks it's dumb. No, I can't have that. So that night I screen grabbed, because I had a program you could screen grab DVDs. I did a side-by-side screen grab of my original screener and the DVD they were putting out, and showed how you're losing context.
So it was so obnoxious. It was so, there were lines of dialogue. There were important lines of dialogue that were replaced with literal grunts. If you recall, there's not to spoil, spoiler warning, a character, he kills himself. And before he kills himself, I believe he says, I'm lost, or I'm lost or something in Swedish before killing himself. And the retranslated English subtitle was just like, groan. I'm like, he's talking to us. He's telling us something. He's giving us a motivation for why he's doing this. And you've reduced this actor's performance to a grunt. Grunt.
Well, what we didn't understand, we couldn't contextualize in the moment was like, but I have the version of the movie with the right subtitles.
Yeah.
Why?
No, but you're also hearing someone say something and it's words and you groan.
Yeah.
It's worse than that.
I don't know why they redid it. My theory was
I'll never understand it.
Maybe they just wanted a cheaper, I don't know, maybe they didn't want to pay whoever did the original translation, whatever the thing is. But the point being is, I put this article up, and again, we were not a big website in terms, like, we didn't have the traffic that, say, Bloody Disgusting had or whatever.
The DVD was out. It was in stores.
Yeah.
Right.
It was out.
So So the next day after this article goes up, where I do the screen grabs, it was our first viral article, because we were picked up by Entertainment Weekly. Roger Ebert.
Roger Ebert
is a big deal for Mike. Yeah. Everybody was talking about it. And I will not reveal her name, but I had a good friend at Magnolia, and she texted me. She's like, holy shit. The shitstorm you just started at my job today. And I'm like, what? Well, like, I don't understand. It got so out of control and so big that they had to reissue the DVD and Blu-ray to say, it says, it's not the default, unfortunately. You have to go and do your show. Subtitles English, subtitles theatrical subtitles. And the theatrical subtitles were the original subtitle tracks. So I don't know if that's how it comes up on default when you watch it streaming wise or what, but they did reissue the disc specifically with the original subtitle track.
I got to have a very brief back and forth email relationship with Roger Ebert for a few months. Which was really kind of awesome. I still have those emails saved because he published. It was either a mailbag issue or something that he did, and he mentioned us. And so I reached out, and every so often, like every couple of months, I'd shoot him a question. He'd write back. Yeah.
I mean, I miss Roger Ebert, even though I didn't always agree with him. I just miss that kind of.
He softened up at towards the end. I mean, the Roger Ebert from the '80s was not the Roger Ebert in the 2000s. He definitely mellowed out on genre, especially. I think some of that I think he had a bad influence with Gene Siskel. I think that was the problem. I think he was I think
those guys really got on each other's nerves.
Yeah, they did.
But, for context, the interview in the book with the director of
Thomas Alfredson. Yeah.
Was this interview before or after the subtitle gate?
Subtitle gate. My memory is fuzzy. I'm sure if I go and check the dates on our website, I'll be able to pinpoint it. But I think it was around the same time. I think it was they were releasing the DVD because they didn't get a theatrical here. It got a DVD.
Right.
And by the way, that's all. I'm glad you brought it up because that interview is a round table. And so I notate when it's me. Because the other questions are really fucking stupid. I'm sorry to say. I mean, people are like, why did you do a vampire movie? And he's like, well, because it's a book. They're like, well, why does this happen? He's like, because that's what happens in the book. I mean, he was very nice, but he was a very straightforward, English was not his first language, and so he didn't
Right.
understand stupid questions. He was just like, because I made a book into a movie, and that's what happens in the book. Like that's what he kept saying.
I did get a chance to run into him a couple of years later because one of the things we had at Brooklyn College was we were invited to National Critics Association screenings as students, and I got to see Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy early.
Yeah, which he directed.
And which he directed. He was there. Gary Oldman was there, and after the screening, I talked to him a little bit about Let the Right One In, and I mentioned our subtitling.
Okay, so he did
which
know.
He did remember. He did know, and he did know about it. Yeah. So
wow.
Yeah.
That's so cool. Yeah, I mean, that was the only time I interacted with him, and it was interesting because they had already announced that that Matt Reeves was going to remake it as, Let Me In.
Right. Let Me In,
and
which I've never seen. I've never seen it. I heard it's great. I'm not going to knock it because I haven't seen it, but I've heard it's very, very a fine movie.
I saw it once when it came out, and I had a very negative reaction to it. But I think a big part of that was because it was just too soon. I wonder if I revisit it now out of context, if I'll appreciate it more. But it was pretty much the same exact movie. And there were elements that, of course, they changed that I was unhappy with personally. I remember, there's spoiler elements, but there are things that I thought were so pivotal to the book and to the first movie. But, again, Matt Reeves is an excellent filmmaker. So I don't know, maybe I'll rewatch it at some point. But if you've never seen Let the Right One In, should be at the top of your queue. Great movie. But anyways, I think this is a good point for us to stop and save the rest of our discussion for the 5th episode coming up next week, where we'll delve into 2009. We'll delve into the Lost interviews. We'll delve into our side website, Massive Hysteria, and why we did that for a little bit. And we'll talk about why we stopped and why we did the brand new interviews for the book, which I'm very excited for people to check out. So thank you very much. Icons of Fright, 100 interviews with legendary horror filmmakers is available now. Buy it.
Go get it.
And share it with your friends.
Wherever books are sold and on Amazon. Ask for it in bookstores.
Is your home library feeling a little dull? Spice it up with some scary good books from Harker Press. We've got books on your favorite franchises and filmmakers loaded with new interviews and never-before-seen photos, many of which are also available on Audible. Learn more at harkerpress.com.